Um, Many people confuse concussion injuries with what's called PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorders. Why don't you draw us or paint us a picture of the difference between concussions and PTSD injuries?
Well, concussion is a physical injury to the brain. The brain is in a skull of bone, and it's a soft tissue. And when you hit or have an accident, in an automobile accident, your brain moves forward, it hits the skull, and it can cause trauma to the skull, sometimes serious trauma. That's a physical injury. Yeah, the brain. Yeah. It's a physical injury to the brain. Post-traumatic stress disorder, in its generic term, is where someone is exposed to a life-threatening event. They're in a near-death experience.
Or what they perceive to be what might be near-death.
That's correct. You're in an elevator that drops 2 floors, something that causes you to be frightened. And you can develop symptomology, which is primarily emotional. But I believe that at times you can have a combination, say a soldier in combat is near an explosion that maybe causes a concussion, but also because he's in a near-death experience, he has emotional reaction, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it could be a combination, but generally speaking, they're two separate things.
So post-traumatic, there's a trauma. It's a traumatic event which causes emotional and or psychological impact on the person.
Correct.
You are in fear for your life or your safety, or maybe for the life and safety of people around you, and it causes a real emotional, traumatic effect on you, and it has a lingering effect, and it can be lifelong, and it could require psychiatric care, psychological care, therapy. And then the concussion injury is there's a physical trauma. Concussion, like a percussion instrument, is a drum, boom, 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 boom. That physical impact, a bomb can cause a concussion, even if the shock wave of the bomb, it reverberates through the brain, and it causes impact on that jello-like flesh of the brain, hitting against the hard shell of the skull. And physiologically, you can have injury to the brain. The symptoms of the two sometimes can be very similar, where you have emotional symptoms that result from the physical harm to the structures of the brain. Is that a fair statement?
That's right. For instance, I had a friend, and I won't mention his name, he's deceased now, but he was in Korea, and in a foxhole with 10 other fellas, and a shell exploded in the foxhole. Everybody was killed but him. Now, he had physical injury, serious physical injury. He had been an athlete. He had trouble walking, but he also developed post-traumatic stress disorder, and he was never the same person, because the emotional aspect was almost as severe or equally severe as the physical injury.
Well, nowadays, in fact, many people, we're aware about how prevalent, from the show that we just recorded, Power of Attorney, so many sports players are injured physically on the field from concussions. Many are sidelined, as many as a third, up to 50%. But we see so many members of the military who are sidelined from bombs exploding, physically not only taking limbs, but also physically causing concussions, causing brain injuries. Some of them, many have post-traumatic stress disorder, but many of them have concussion injuries that limit them and prevent them from being able to live normal lives. And we see that all over the newspapers, and we see more suicides than ever in the history of our military. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and I think that's because a life-threatening incident, and it happens to a large percentage of people. They get emotionally affected, but a lot of them have physical injuries that if you get a brain injury from a concussion, it can cause problems, mechanical problems, inability to sleep, think, speak.